We want to welcome everybody to our fireside chat about the GPC.
Do you
And
want me to jump in with polls?
yes, that would be great.
Okay, they move around every time. Okay, here we are. We would love to know, um, first of all, how many successful grant applications have you written? Can everybody see that poll coming up? Okay, that's pretty easy. Less than five or five or more. This is one of those things that are related to eligibility. It's great that you're here either way to learn about the GPC, but and so we'll give people a few more seconds to put that in. It's not We're not going to identify anybody, so
And we have a
make it
question
up as
about
you
do we
go.
mean awarded? And we really don't. It's have you been involved or part of a team that worked on an application?
Yeah, you don't have to be the only person, but it does need to be awarded, though I believe so.
Okay.
Successful. That the Yeah. Okay. Three more seconds. Three, two, one, and let's share the results. It looks like 17% less than 83%, five or more. That's great. And let me go on to question number two. And while I'm doing that, can you make a co-host with Lakeisha join?
I did. Our president Lakeisha joined us, and I believe I
Awesome.
did make her the co-host.
All right. Usually your picture pops up to the top, so maybe it's just my display. All right. The next one is years in the grant profession. How many years have you been working in the grant profession? So Katie, maybe you can help me here, but like they don't have to be the last 5 years, but within the recent history. Is that it?
Yeah, they have to, well, depending on the pathway. So minimum of 3 for pathway 2, 5 pathway 1. I don't have it right in front of me.
Yeah. Okay. So
To be
this
eligible.
this isn't like part of our quiz, eligibility quiz, but this is helping us see. Oh, and then there's seven or more down here on this as well. So, oh, we've got seven or more is winning the race here. So let's do three more seconds and get a few more people to fill it out and hit enter. And then three, two, one, I'm going to end the poll and share the results. And you can see here that 52% have seven or more. That's great. And then, three to seven, six is a big chunk. And then one and two are 14%. So that's good. And then since I work with GPCI on the marketing part of it, this is my favorite one. Where did you first learn about the GPC or the Grant Professional Certification Institute? So were you out searching for credentials from a partner GPA or a conference, chapter, another GPC, or other? And if you hit other, please put it in the comments. And sometimes you could give a shout out for a mentor or something like that if another GPC sent you this way. All right, three more seconds and then we'll jump in and I will just end the poll. It's split even among about all of
Yeah,
them. So,
lots of different ones.
all right. So, Kathy, I'll turn the time over to you on this one.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for coming. My name's Kathy Hatfield. I am a GPC since 2017, I believe. I'm from Central Ohio and I'm the vice president for the GPCI board. And I'm also the ambassador liaison. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We want to start by talking a little bit about our journeys to becoming GPCs. And so I'm joined by some other board members Um, and so I'm going to have each one of them introduce themselves and tell a little bit about why they became a GPC. So I'm going to start at the top left of my screen, and Jelaine, that is you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. My name is Jelaine, and I work in higher education in northern Minnesota. And I have been in the grants profession for about 23 years. I did not take my GPC exam until about 2016. And I am happy to serve with scholarships as well as CMP, and I'll share more about that as we go through. And my professional development plan included a national credential, I think, for 3 years. And in higher ed, your supervisors change a lot. And so my third or fourth supervisor said, you either need to take a credential or exam, or you need to take that off of your plan. So she was the first one who actually kind of called me out on it. And so I did it, and I'm grateful that I did. And because it was a part of my own professional development, it helped with my career directly with that. So that's my story. And I'm turning it over to our president, Lakeisha.
Hello, I'm Lakeisha Morris Moreau, 2026 president of GPCI. I have been a GPC since 2016. I first heard about the GPC from another GPC. I went to a GPA meeting and she asked me about the GPC, and from there I started wanting to learn more, much like I hope many of you here today. I've been in the grants field for over 25 years, in the nonprofit sector, over 25 years. I went into grants kicking and screaming. I did not want to do it, but right now I love it. And it's a pleasure to have you all here with us today. And I am going to send it over to Amanda.
Hi, my name is Amanda Neese. I work in hospital and healthcare fundraising, and have worked with medical grants since, I guess it's going to be 21 years now this year. I live in Virginia and work remotely with a large hospital system across Connecticut and New York State. And I did not become a GPC until I had been in the profession for 19 years. And I think it's important to talk about that because for me, I had a lot of test taking anxiety. There was first the matter of putting together the application and package itself. And when I looked at it on the site, it felt very overwhelming. It's really not as overwhelming as it seems. And then because the exam is a two-part exam, which we'll get into more, and a timed exam, as someone with high level of anxiety, that struck me as something that felt really scary. Even though I already had another different credential at the same time, I don't know why I was so scared of GPC. It ended up not being the intimidating process that I expected it to be. The exam really tests mastery of your experience and work in the field. And so if you have 3 to 5 years of experience and have worked in grants offices as a grant professional for that amount of time, this should not be as intimidating as it felt. So it took me 19 years, but sat for it. Glad I did. Please don't wait 19 years like I did.
Katie, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Katie Shoemaker. I am currently the eligibility chair for GPCI, and I've been on the board for a few years now. So when you submit your packets, they all come to me. I have been in the grants profession for a little over 12 years. I've had my GPC since 2017, and I learned about the GPC through my local GPA chapter at the time. I had a fellow chapter member mentor me through the process. She had already gotten her GPC. So when I put together my packet, she acted as like a reviewer for me to make sure all the components were there, and then kind of helped me work through to make sure I had a core understanding of all the competencies to ensure I was ready for the exam. I was a little intimidated by the application process, more intimidated by the exam. And my bottom line with everybody thinking about the GPC is trust what you know. If you meet the minimum years and required experience to get through the eligibility process, then you are presumably ready to take the exam. So trust your inherent instinct, trust your career experience, and you will do just fine.
Okay, last but not least, Steve.
Hello, everyone. My name is Steve Harrington. I am a grants person for the Department of Public Health in South Carolina. I have been writing and administering federal grants for over 30 years, and at the state, local, and nonprofit areas. I had my GPC since 2007. And I first found out about the GPC through the um, GPA Foundation. And so the president of that foundation at the time, was working on the test and asked me if I was interested in taking the test as part of the first cohort. And I said yes. And we took it in 2007 in Washington, D.C. And I'm going to tell you, you should be able to take it now without as much trouble as we had. We took it in a hotel room with 50 other people, and they were having a wedding reception in the room next door so you could hear the music playing and the people dancing. So it was a little unnerving, but I still passed anyway. So I would encourage people to take the test if they're eligible to take the test. And it can feel a little daunting at first, but just kind of like an elephant, you take one bite at a time, and you'll eventually get there. So I encourage everyone to take the test, and you will not regret it. I have not regretted it since 2007.
I
Thank you.
agree. I agree you won't regret it. I'm also a late bloomer like Amanda. I've been in the grants field for over 30 years. I shudder to think how many years over 30. When I started doing grants, it wasn't a career or a field. I was running a program for battered women and children, and we needed things and we didn't have them, and so I went to somebody and said, show me what you do, and they did. And I never heard of GPA or GPC until probably 15, 20 years ago. And that was when I learned about GPA in Central Ohio and became a member. And for me, it was part of claiming a career that I'd been in for so long. And it also is about, I was shifting to be a consultant at that point. Um, but anybody can hang up a shingle and say they're a grant professional, and I've got something um, with credibility behind it to back that up now. So, with that being said, we're going to start our presentation. And so, Tammy, you want to pull up the PowerPoint, please?
There we go. Can you see it?
I can. Thank you. So, you're here for the fireside to learn more about the GPC. So, the things that we're going to cover are we've done the introduction. We're going to talk some about the credential and then talk through the process for pursuing your initial GPC certification. Once you are credentialed as a GPC, you'll want to maintain your GPC, and so we're going to briefly talk about that, and we'll also answer questions as we go along. And I believe we're going to talk first about GPCI, and Steve, you are going to cover that.
Right. GPCI, our mission is that GPCI is dedicated to measuring and promoting competency and ethical practices within the field of grantsmanship. We accomplish this mission through the identification of grant professionals who have displayed outstanding expertise in ethical practices as measured by a psychometrically valid and reliable assessment tool. It took a long time to get that together. The the first president of GPCI and a group of individuals from GPA got together and helped design the first test and had it psychometrically evaluated and valid. And they intended for that to be that way from the very beginning, so that it was not just, oh, I attended a workshop and now I have a certification. No, that is not the case in this respect. So who gets the next slide?
I do, Jelaine. So thank you, Steve. That was a great intro to my slide. And I want to share a couple different things, and then I'm going to prep Lakeisha that I'm going to have her talk a little bit about the accreditation itself. I just want to take one moment to clarify. A lot of us have been saying GPA, and if you're not familiar with that term, that is Grant Professionals Association, and it is an affiliated organization of ours, but we are not, you do not have to be a part of GPA in order to sit for the exam or to be in the GPC or retain it. So I just want to make sure that's clear. And I know sometimes all these acronyms are always confusing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the differences, as Steve had mentioned, between certificates, credentials, and then also accreditation. And then I'm going to have Lakeisha share more about that, because she's really our accreditation person on the board. So as Steve had mentioned, you can, and they're very valuable trainings that you can go to, boot camps. They're things for mid-level grant professionals. They're great trainings that you do, and at the end you get that certificate of completion, and that's fantastic. But that is really indicating that you have met, you've learned and you've met certain criteria that happened in a training course, that happened in that boot camp. So that's the one level. And again, each level has its own purposes, and I have many of these, and especially when I was starting out, my very first grant training, I still rely on that. So I got a certificate for that. Then you can get a professional credential. And so I think the easiest way to think of that, especially in higher ed, are those degrees. So you do have a credential that is going to be verified in the industry, whether that is, by higher ed or by your experts in your industry. So that is a professional credential, and that would be things like the GPC, like a CPA, but it also can be non-accredited credentials can be a part of this as well. So that is basically saying with your credential that you're meeting the industry standards that subject matter experts have developed, and you've passed through that and done the credential itself. The next level, which GPC has been a part of since, now I'm going to forget, 2019 is when we became accredited. So we are an accredited credential, which means that we have external reviews that have said, yes, this certification is meeting these external standards. And so accredited credential is going to mean that that review process has happened as well. So certification, when I got my certificate, that showed that I, as an individual, had passed a course. I got my certificate of completion. The accreditation is going to actually provide proof that the certification itself meets a rigorous standard. So, I shouldn't say that. Certification means that I've passed, through whatever exam that was approved, but the accreditation, which Lakeisha will talk about now.
Right. Now on this next screen, you see that we are accredited by the NCCA, the National Commission for Certifying Agencies, and that is that third-party entity that has reviewed our exam process, reviewed our intake process and eligibility process, and our certification maintenance program, and said, yes, this is a valid test or exam that can demonstrate the competency of people in the grants profession. What is important about this is, like Jelaine said, you might have your college degree, every 3 years, you don't have to go back and take more classes so you can keep your college degree. Your college degree, you've gone to the classes, you've done the work, and you've obtained that degree. With an accredited credential, every 3 years, we have to go back and prove that we're still putting in the work, right? We're still working in the field. We're still maintaining our professional education credits. We're still contributing to the field. We're still actively participating in our community. And that is what says, yes, I maintain myself as a grant professional. And that's the beauty of this. Like with me, when I first sought the GPC, it was to validate my work because a lot of us, we learned on the job training. There was no class that we took and then we said we were a grant professional. But I stay in it because it elevates the profession as a whole. And that's what this accreditation means, as we are the first in the world to have a national accreditation for grant professionals. Next slide, please. And who is taking the next slide?
I
That's
think
want
it's
me to-
me.
Amanda.
So, yeah. So in terms of what the GPC exam offers for stakeholders, for the employers who are preferring GPCs or supporting individuals on their teams to sit for, obtain, and continue their education towards a GPC exam, it's really a mark of excellence for employers. So for example, my employer had no GPCs on staff until I took the exam and then supported my team in taking the exam as well. And once we both passed the exam, my employer, which is a large statewide, multi-state organization in the Northeast, put out a press release and said, we are one of the only organizations in Connecticut and New York State with GPCs, 100% of our staff, our grant staff being GPCs. And that was something that they were very proud of. It also provides assurance to clients if you are a consultant, but also to those who are grant makers. So saying that the organizations that we work in are ones that support the highest level of accountability and ethical standards for operations for our grants, which means that grants that they award to us are going to be managed well, compliantly, ethically, and that they can trust the work that we do. The GPC is also a credential that's very respected by peers. If you go to any GPA conference or NGMA conference, you see the GPC credential across people's names, and that's a sign of high attainment in our field. And so it is a credential that is respected, highly respected in the field. And it is, as I was mentioning before, really valued by funders because they know that when they put their money and their grants in our hands, that they will be managed well. Next slide, please. Similarly, the GPC elevates the grant profession and it has benefits for those who are taking the GPC exam. So once you have that credential, it really increases demand and recognition for you and your skills across potential employers. I know that once I got the GPC credential, LinkedIn recruiters started hitting my inbox almost daily, where that was happening maybe on monthly or quarterly basis before. But adding that GPC to my name all of a sudden opened me up to a whole new field of potential job opportunities. And by people who were seeking my experience, who it didn't matter that I had 19 years of experience in the field. They wanted to see that I kind of put my money where my mouth is in terms of credential, and that they could trust the credential even more than they could trust my experience. It also led to, for me and for many GPCs, once they get their credential, it led to promotion, which came along with increased responsibility, compensation, a advanced leadership track as well. And again, as a whole, it really enhances our profession's reputation, trust, and credibility. Next slide. On to Katie.
All right. So probably the reason why a lot of you are here, I'm going to cover some things around our eligibility process. So this kind of gives you an overview, and then we're going to jump into the nitty-gritty. So first things first, you're going to want to assess if you're actually eligible or not. This can easily be done on our website through our 5-minute eligibility survey. Please don't just click through the survey to get to the end. Actually read the questions and make sure that you're meeting that criteria. It will help you later. After you complete that survey, you will be paying your exam registration fees before you submit your eligibility packet. My advice would be don't pay those fees because it's not cheap. Don't pay those fees until you're absolutely sure that you are eligible to sit for the exam. You will need to put a copy of your payment receipt or proof of payment in your packet. So that's why you do have to pay prior to submitting your packet. But if you submit your packet and you're not eligible and you pay, there is an administrative fee that you have to pay in order for things to go through. So I would just emphasize to only pay if you're absolutely sure that you're going to submit your packet. Once you pay your fee, you have 90 calendar days to submit your eligibility packet. From there, it gets sent to me. I do an administrative screen, and then it goes on to our review committee. And then if you are approved, if you're eligible, then you will get a voucher to take the exam. Next slide. Okay, so the way you determine if you are eligible is through one of two pathways. I like to emphasize here, it's like taking a hike. You choose a path and you go down that path. You can't go down both paths at the same time. So you're either eligible in pathway 1 or pathway 2. That is mostly determined between your education and your experience. So you'll see under pathway 1, the education requirement there is your high school diploma, associate's degree, et cetera, basically anything under, not a bachelor's degree. For pathway 2, it's bachelor's degree and higher. So once you determine, oh, I have a bachelor's or oh, I don't, you choose your pathway. From there, you go down to the next step in the pathway, which is your professional experience. So pathway 1, you have to have 5 years of professional experience within the last 7 years. Pathway 2, 3 years of professional experience within the last 5 years. Professional experience, we've gotten a lot of questions on what that means. And really, it's anything to do with the grants life cycle, right? Your grant writing, your grant prospect research, grant management. It's not exclusive to funders, and that's a question we get a lot. Do we have a pathway for those people who are grant makers only? Saying they make the grant application, they offer it to applicants. And unfortunately, we aren't at that point in our journey as GPCI to have a pathway exclusive to that. But if you have a mix of experience, say you were a grant writer and then became a grant maker, then that would definitely count as long as it's within that last, those year marks under professional experience. In addition, and this is non-negotiable, you must have 5 successful grant proposals over the last 7 years. What does successful mean? It means you have an award letter, an award email, proof of grant award. And you'll want to have that proof saved up as backup copies in case your application gets audited, which I'll go into in a little bit. So your education and your professional experience are your all or nothing categories for points. You're either eligible or you're not based on how you fall in those two. The next 2 categories are your continuing education and your community involvement. So continuing education professional practices, think about it as professional development. That's not your employment. This is the things you do to stay on the up and up in the field of grants, right? Your webinars, your conferences, your trainings, anything that you have proof of in those 2-year frameworks to say, I went and did this, you could get points for. So under pathway 1, you can earn 50 points. Pathway 2, you can earn 40 points. And then community involvement, and our president touched on this a little bit. You can get points here for credit for things that you do within your community that don't have to be grant related, which is really awesome. So you volunteer at your local animal shelter, you do some stuff for your church, I don't know, maybe you do volunteer writing grants. I mean, I do that sometimes for different nonprofits that need it. You can earn up to 50 points for pathway 1 and 20 points for pathway 2 for those community-based volunteer services that you offer. Like I said, continuing education and community involvement are not all or nothing. For example, you could have, 10 hours in one and 20 hours in another. You can kind of mix and match there. I've also seen applicants come through that have no continuing education and all community involvement, or, vice versa. So, just looking at this though, you only need 120 points out of 170 total possible to pass eligibility. I don't give anyone any extra credit for having the maximum amount of points. If you have that, great, proud of you, pat yourself on the back, but you really only need 120 points out of 170 to pass eligibility. Next slide. So really, I want to encourage you all to go to our website if you're seeking more information and access our guide. So we have a candidate guide as well as the eligibility packet template. You must use the eligibility packet template to be reviewed for your eligibility. So our template is available on our website, both in PDF and now in Word format. So you can manipulate the template if you need extra rows or extra space in your tables. And I like to remind applicants that anything you put in that packet is subject to audit. We do audit 10% of our eligibility packets. It's a random choice every week, every month. So if I reach out to you and I say, hey, your packet's been selected for audit, you will have to provide proof of every single thing you submit in your packet. For example, if you listed a webinar, I have to see proof of registration or an email or something like that. You went to a conference, proof that you went to these different sessions and whatnot, and their relation to the grant profession, things of that nature. Don't let the word audit scare you. You have 10 calendar days and we provide guidance on exactly what we need for that as well. Some other questions I tend to get are, what do the letters of recommendation or preference have to say in the packet? There is a very detailed page in the eligibility packet template as well in the candidate guide that gives you step-by-step what your letters need to say and the minimum requirements there. And yeah, I think that's a high level thing. So basically access the guide, fill out your template, your packet, get that in. And then in the guide as well, we have sample multiple choice questions and writing prompts with responses to help you prep for the exam.
And once Katie finishes deeming you as eligible, then you come over to my side of the court where we are the exam administration committee. And what you will take will be the multiple choice exam, which is 175 questions. You will have 4 hours to sit for that exam. And then you have the essay, which is 90 minutes and no breaks for the essay. With the essay exam, you will be assigned a portion of a grant and you will have 90 minutes to write that portion of that grant. You will receive from me an email that has voucher codes in it, as well as the date by which you have to complete both the exams. You have 90 days from the date that you receive those voucher codes to sit for your exam. We have 2 formats that we allow. You can either take the exam on site at one of the testing centers provided by our provider, or you can take the exam at home or in an online setting, and you will have a live proctor watching you through a camera during the time that you're taking that. But I will say is that the online version of the exam is the most restrictive as far as there's no bathroom breaks allowed with the online version. However, with the multiple choice, if you are on site, you are allowed 2 bathroom breaks. If you need anything other than that, you would need to submit a request for accommodations along with your eligibility packet. Next slide, please. The multiple choice exam has several competencies. The research and identifying and matching funding, 18%, organizational development, 9%, strategies for effective program, 17%, crafting and constructing and submitting a grant application, 23%, post-award grant management practices, 10%, methods of cultivating and maintaining relationships, 7%, nationally recognized standards of ethical practices, 10%, and practices and services that raise the level of professionalism in the grants profession, 6%. So look at these percentages, and that'll tell you the areas that are ranked the highest as far as the exam is concerned. Next slide, please. Similarly, when you get to the essay portion, we also have competencies. Persuasive argument, 34%. Organize ideas effectively, 22%. Convey ideas clearly, 18%. Use of conventions and standard written English, 10%. Use information provided, 12%. And following the formatting guidelines, 4%. Again, looking at the weight that is allowed for each of these competencies and making sure that you're really focused on that. Katie talked about the candidate guide, and in that candidate guide, there are examples of multiple choice questions in the candidate guide as well as on our website. There's a packet of about 30 questions on the website, but also there are examples of what the writing prompt looks like and examples of what a good, better, best essay looks like. So you can get a feel of what we're looking for when you're sitting for those portions. Let's say by chance that you do not pass one of these parts, you will not have to take the full exam. You will only take the portion of the exam that you did not pass. So you don't have to pay the full amount. Another thing is you have the option to, you think of this exam, it's one exam, but think of it with the two parts as two separate exams when you're registering. So if you decide, I want to sit for this exam on site, and I want to sit the multiple choice exam on site because I can't go 4 hours without going to the restroom. So I'm going to go into a site. You can register for that multiple choice on site. But then if you want to, you can register for the writing part of it at home if you choose, or take them both and you can take them the same day, making sure that you space them apart or on different days. The only requirement is that you complete the full exam, meaning both parts, within that 90-day allotment. Next slide. I think
Okay, I
Kathy's.
think it's back to me. So, exam preparation materials. There is no specific study guide by GPCI. There are some books and materials that are out in the community, but they are not connected with GPCI. We are hoping to have a study test by the end of the year, but it's not ready yet. We do have a lot of materials on the GPCI website. That includes study guides. I think Catherine Hart, I saw Catherine Hart attended with us today. She is a GPC who has done a webinar of Train the Trainer about facilitating a study group, and her materials are on our website. We also have links to active study groups that we know of on our website, as well as literature review. There's some sample multiple choice questions, and GPCI Accepted Education Program AEP providers. Because once you get your CMP, get your GPC, a certain amount of professional development need to be from those AEP providers. But they provide great resources when you're getting ready to get your GPC as well. Another thing that's on that website is a webinar that Karen Lambert, who's also a GPC, has done, where she has a system she's developed for preparing and organizing yourself to be prepared to take the GPC, which is also worth watching. And so I really recommend that if you're thinking about doing this, that the web link that's down there is a great place to start. Next slide. Well, you'll get copies of these slides, and so you'll have the links, and we can also put some in the chat. But there are specific links to the things that I've referenced here. The other thing that is a resource that the email address is on here. I'm the liaison for the GPCI Ambassador Program, and what that means is that we have volunteer GPCs who give their time to champion the GPC, and they support folks that are working towards getting their GPC. And so if you email us at that GPC ambassadors, and I can put it in the chat when I'm done speaking, we can try to connect you with someone in your community who has volunteered to be that champion and can support and maybe answer questions for you. We can also try to link you to some of these other resources. So that email address is a great place to start if you have questions about getting support and resources.
Thank you, Kathy. I would reiterate that Catherine Hart, who's on our webinar today, is an amazing resource and has helped many of us achieve our GPC. So shout out to her, and hopefully she'll jump in and answer some questions on preparing when we get to that point. So I'm going to share a little bit about scholarships. We have scholarships that are available. Some of them are based on geography, others are based on different criteria. We have a new scholarship that was created that is for people who are sitting for the exam for the first time. So we have some great donors out there who have given to GPC in order to help all of you achieve your goals to attain the GPC as well. We do only offer our scholarships one time a year, but the great news is it's now. So our scholarship application is open, and your application deadline is April 30th for that. We will send you resources, and they're on our website as well. We did host a scholarship webinar, so for those that were ready to submit their scholarship applications, we had that available, and then we have other information on our website as well. It is really important to have the timing correct in the same way that Katie talked about eligibility. You would submit your scholarship now if you are eligible to sit for the exam, and to do that by the end of this year. So we do have to make sure that if you are awarded the scholarship, it is something that you can accomplish everything by the end of the year. At the latest would be your last date to be able to sit for the exam. So we will have applications in April, and we'll notify you in June, and then you will get your packet into Katie, and we'll start you on that journey. We do have both full scholarships as well as partial scholarships. And then once, I'll talk about next, maintaining your certification, we do also have a few scholarships for those that have the credential and are in their time period over the next, they're in the next four cohorts, to renew. They can submit for scholarships for that as well. We call that our Certificate Maintenance Program, CMP. Yet another wonderful, we love our acronyms, as every good grant professional does. So for our CMP, this is the program for once you have your credential. As Lakeisha mentioned, we have to be able to show that we're staying current in our field and in our profession. And so this does ensure continued competencies. And we do have everyone renew every 3 years. When you're at that point, we have webinars for that as well, and there is more information on our site as well. So as you're thinking about pursuing the GPC, you don't need to worry about that quite yet, but just know that it is a requirement, and we are here to help with that as well. So I think I'll turn it back to Lakeisha for the rest.
So what's next? If you've been following us on social media, you'll know that in March we implemented our Road to 850 campaign, which is our desire to get to 850 GPCs by the end of 2026. So if today is your first time joining us, or you've been with us before and you're kind of inching toward wanting to sit for your exam, here's your action item. You want to take the GPC eligibility quiz. It's on our website. Take the quiz. You'll find out if you are potentially eligible. And then, of course, after you take that quiz and we say, yes, you are potentially eligible, consider submitting that payment. Make sure, as Katie said, that you have looked at the actual eligibility packet and you're able to collect and provide the information in that packet before you make that payment. It is an investment and it's not refundable. So we want to make sure that you're ready to go through that process. And then you have 90 days to complete and submit that packet. If Katie doesn't have any questions, and you've done an excellent job because you've attended all of our fireside chats and you have all of your ducks in a row, then I'll be in touch with you with your eligibility codes, with your vouchers for you to sit for the exam. Next slide. And of course, we want to thank all of our GPC Fireside sponsors, Premier Sponsor, Kim Joyce and Associates, Gold Sponsor, Grant Consulting Services, and Silver Sponsor, Bell Tower Consulting Group, GEMS, and Langston Consulting. Thank you for your support. And I believe now we're going to open the floor for questions. I think Amanda and Katie have been busy in the chat. Is there anything that we want to highlight?
I have one that we want to highlight. So we're getting a lot of questions around backup documentation for your awarded grants. And I just want to remind everyone on the call, we are accredited. So basically, anything you submit in your packets can get pulled by accreditation. So we have to make sure that every little detail is logged when we do audits and things like that on our packets. There is not really an alternative option to show proof of your award. So if you're no longer in contact with an employer or you can't access that proof, I would highly advise you don't list that grant in your packet. You only have to list 5 awarded grants in the last 7 years in your eligibility packet. So my advice would be to list grant awards that you do have access to that information, or like work on getting access to that information before you submit your packet. I've seen folks that, they don't work for a client or an employer anymore, but hopefully you left on a good note and they can reach out and say, hey, I'm applying for this to sit for this credentialing exam. Can I just get a copy of the award letter? You can redact information in that award letter. Anything that's like private or confidential, you can black that out. We're not looking for that sort of information. We're just looking to make sure that that grant was actually awarded, that it's real. And if I've seen like a federal award where folks have submitted as part of their audit, like a screenshot of the federal agency, the organization name and the amount, that would also suffice. The social media question that's listing the awarded amount, I would advise that we don't accept those, just because that isn't official information from the funder. But even an email from the funder would suffice, right? To say like, organization XYZ was awarded, $10,000 for project XYZ and the date. Unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, we're held to pretty rigorous standards because of our accreditation, and there's not a lot of wiggle room in what we can and can't accept. Let's see, there's another question okay, so someone asked a question around documentation for continuing education. So again, like all of this documentation is stuff that you should be having somewhere on your computer, electronically saved, so that if you get selected for audit, you do not submit this information as a part of your packet. If you submit all of the backup documentation as part of your packet, I will return it to you. And if it's past your 90 days and your packet's not complete, it is considered late and you will have to pay an administrative fee for it to go through to the review committee. So documentation for continuing ed. So you register for an online webinar, organization hosting the webinar sends you a confirmation of that registration. That would be your proof. If you go to a conference, any sort of proof around sessions, it can be screenshots of, say, the app of the session you attended. It can be like scanned in written copies of things from the sessions you were at. Things like that would suffice. Let's see. I think that answered that question. If the documentation is insufficient for the eligibility packet, will you come back to ask for further documentation, or will it be rejected? I will come back. So all of your packets come to me. I do an administrative review to make sure that you hit all of the different points. If you didn't hit all of the things that is requested in the template, I'll return it to you and I will tell you how to fix it. But again, if you're submitting me your packet on day 89 or day 90 of your deadline and it is not complete, It will be returned to you, and you will have to pay a fee for it to go forward in the process. So please don't procrastinate. Please be the amazing grant professionals that I know you all are, and stay a couple weeks out from your deadlines. Read the packet instructions with detail. Don't rush through this process just because you want to get it into me and you want to get it forward in the process, because I will return it to you. Another important item to note is that every single person on the GPCI board, every single person that's reviewing your packets, we are all volunteers. None of us get paid to do this work. So sometimes there's a little bit of a lag in communication. So you might submit your packet on a Monday. I might not email you back till Wednesday. So just be a little patient with us. We're all doing this in addition to our full-time jobs. Let's see, is documented professional practice included our work hours if we are a grant writer and researcher? So professional practice and continuing education is a different category than your employment or years of experience as a grant professional. Think about professional practice as like professional development. So webinars, conferences, sessions, anything that relates to the GPCI competencies that you're being trained in, those boot camps that Jelaine mentioned would count. Even if you're taking like a grant writing course, those I know exist now, that would also count as hours, as long as it can be documented. If you took an educational series in early 2005 but don't have the receipt, I would advise you don't list that in your packet. And again, continuing ed and community involvement are those interchangeable categories, right? Like you don't need to max out on points in both to be eligible. So consider that. I give you nothing special for maxing out your points. Okay, I think I hit a lot of them, but are there others that I missed, anybody?
I think you got all of them, Katie, and if you didn't get them, Kathy, Tammy, or I jumped on them. Actually, there's
sorry, Amanda, I'm gonna interrupt you. I'm gonna jump in with one that's been answered, and sometimes we forget the basic things, the cost. So the cost for the exam is $639. And so that's where we have scholarships that would cover full to partial costs of that. But it is $639 for the full exam to register when you pay the fee.
There's a question around scholarships too, Jelaine, if you want to answer that in the Q&A.
Absolutely. Our scholarships are not tied to a certain country, so they are global. I think, is that the question that was answered?
I don't know what the scholarship application looks like because I'm not involved in that.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, it's in the Q&A, and it's, will the eligibility check be done at the time of applying for scholarship? No, you need to make sure that you're eligible and can turn in your eligibility packet by the end of August. But we don't want you taking a scholarship unless you're eligible, and winning if taking it from somebody who's not. So make sure that you are eligible, and there's a link to the eligibility quiz. So if you're looking at that timeline of how many years, and don't gamble on awarded grants, make sure that you meet those eligibility as you apply.
Absolutely. And we do ask the question on the scholarship application. And so don't just mark yes if you aren't sure if you are eligible. Take our eligibility quiz. Take each question very seriously, as Katie said. And then if you are eligible, go ahead and then you can submit or you can work on your scholarship application as well. For the scholarship, we do have the rubrics. We have everything that our reviewers are going to be looking at as they evaluate your scholarship application. Not to jump too much into that, but make sure you invest in yourself in the same way that you do your organization. We are all grant professionals. Now the subject is you. So just approach it in the same way you do a proposal. And please don't wait till the last minute with those as well.
Jelaine, there's two questions kind of related to the fee scholarship thing you're talking about. One is the cost of the exam above and beyond the application fee?
Oh, sorry, no. And so your application fee, you only is your exam fee as well. So you pay the 639 before you submit in your packet or while you're submitting your packet. You're going to do your eligibility. You're going to pay your exam fee or your fee, which is 639. So that is a one time that you're paying. Then you go through eligibility. Katie had referenced that if for some reason you fail or if it doesn't work, there is a fee to return that money. So, or if you aren't in, go through that entire process. So make sure that you're ready before you send us your money for that.
And somebody
we use a contractor, so it is not, it's two different systems, which is why we need you to send us a copy of your receipt in order to process eligibility. Sorry, go ahead, Kathy.
Well, then the follow-up is, so we pay for the application, and if we get a scholarship, is it considered reimbursable? So you want to talk about if they want to apply the scholarship, how to do that?
Yes, absolutely. If you're going to apply for the scholarship, do not pay your fee. It is not reimbursable. So we need you to wait until you find out in June whether or not you have received the scholarship. So please do not pay a fee in order if you're applying for the scholarships. Go ahead and apply to those.
But if you want to start prepping your packet, you can do that, right? Like nothing's stopping you from starting to compile all that information so that if you get the scholarship, it's a little quicker for you this summer.
Absolutely. And as some of us were discussing, and thank you for those that submitted questions ahead of time, we are really excited to have many of you that are not quite yet eligible to sit for our exam. You have an advantage, though, that I certainly didn't have. I was digging back through emails and awards and things. You have the advantage of preparing now. So if this is something that in a year you're going to be eligible, you can start on that packet. You can download it. It's a Word or PDF and start doing that now versus those of us that scrambled through what did I do 3 years ago? And so that's the great thing of starting before you're actually eligible is you can build that up. And certainly you can go to these webinars, watch the recordings as well, so that you can make sure that you have what you need when you are ready to submit the eligibility packet.
There's also a comment and a question about the questions, and I'm going to start a response and then I'll let Lakeisha or whoever else want to tag on. But they say there's been a discussion in Grant Zone about the practice multiple choice questions being confusing in the way they're written. Is there any discussion of revising how questions are asked for greater clarity? What I would say is the way we do multiple choice questions is best practice. We have volunteer grant professionals who actually contribute as part of the grant development process to creating the questions, and then they're vetted and then go into the exam. You're taking 175 questions, but not all of them count. You don't know which ones, none of us know which ones do not count. And the psychometrician, because we're accredited through NCCA, the psychometrician gives us information, and we regularly review questions to see how people who score well on the exam or medium on the exam, how certain questions play out. So all of that is taken into account. What we are hoping to do to help later this year is we're trying to put together a test taking webinar that we hope to be able to offer, much the same as the one we've got for the study group and for organizing yourself to get ready for the exam. It would be the third leg in that trilogy of webinars for pursuing your GPC. So more to come on that. Anything to add, Lakeisha?
No, that's exactly right. And when you are sitting for the exam, the score, you have to get 102 questions right. So you're taking 175, you have to get 102 questions correct in order to pass the exam. That's the minimum. And we introduced the new exam in January 2025. We implemented the new one. And this year, last year for 2025, we had, I think it was around 95% success as far as people passing the exam. That might include some people who might have had to retake, but it was very few people who had to retake to get to that 95%. So it's a very high success rate. And the reason behind that is because you all had to put in so much work just to prove that you're eligible, right? We spent a lot of time today talking about eligibility and proof of work and all of that. So if you already know the information, it should be easy for you to sit for the exam. But any feedback that you have, we're always open to it, especially as we develop this product that we can provide to you. If those practice questions might need to be refined, we can treat this the same way that we treat the exam questions that you actually take. Those are more to just give you an idea of the way that the questions are set up in the exam, but those aren't actual questions that you all will receive on the exam. I think there was another question about the computer on site versus online. And yes, it's a computer-based exam. If you are taking the exam on site, you will use the computer provided to you by the on-site vendor. And if you're taking the exam at home, of course, you will use your home computer. We do not recommend that you use your employer's computer because they might have firewalls and things that will prohibit you from downloading the software that you need to download in order to sit for the exam. On our website, as well as if you email us, we can send you the information. You can do a test run to make sure that your computer is compatible with the testing vendor.
We want to thank everybody for coming today. I know we're a little bit past the hour, so if you need to go, please feel free to do that. Everybody will get a copy of the slides and the recording. Have we answered everybody's questions? It looks
I'll
like
make
it.
one
Well,
last pitch that if you are eligible, please apply for our scholarships. We do not request any financial information. You just tell us the circumstance by which why you're requesting. But I would submit it if I didn't have the GPC. Why not? Go ahead and submit that. And we do have quite a few that are sponsored by different groups. So also check with your chapter if again GPA, but if you're in a grant professional association chapter, they might have also give some reimbursement things. But please do look at our scholarships and apply. Everyone who's eligible has a chance.
Thank you. I will make sure that the email goes out, and it will go out from info@Grant Credential, and there's no stopping for you to ask more questions if you have any. I think we got a lot of questions answered, and I know that it's in the recording, the answers, as well as the resource sheet. A lot of the links that we sent out are also included in that for your convenience. Thank you so much. And we hope you apply for scholarships, and we'll see you on the GPC list.
thank you, everybody.